Kia ora, tēnā tātou, ko Megan Tapsell tōku ingoa, he uriau no Aotearoa. I am Megan Tapsell, and I'm a descendant from Aotearoa, New Zealand. As-salam, alaikum, marhaba, and welcome. Behind me, you see an image of a Maori man, and a handsome man at that, I might add, seeing as he's my papa, and an image of an artificial intelligence machine, and they're sharing a hongi, which is connecting forehead to forehead, nose to nose. And through the sharing of a hongi, they are sharing what we call in Māori, peha, the breath of life. The origin of the hongi is considered to have come directly from our gods during the creation of the first person. She was made out of clay from Papa Tuanuku, our Earth Mother. And she was called Hine Ahu One, which literally means the earth-formed woman. Upon her creation, our God Tāne, he embraced Hine Ahu One and touched foreheads and noses in a hongi and shared his breath with her, breathing life into her through her nostrils. Koinei te timatatanga o te ira tangata, and this was the beginning of humanity. Tihei mauri ora. When you first look at this, it seems a bit contradictory. A person and an artificial entity sharing a breath, sharing a hongi. But herein lies the message that I want to share with you today. As Indigenous people, as Māori, as Aboriginal, as First Nation or any other Indigenous people, we should absolutely be involved in breathing life into artificial intelligence technology. Let me first start by exploring what we mean by AI. In my native tongue, and from an Indigenous perspective, our AI Forum New Zealand has translated AI as atamai iahiko, in its simplest form, an intelligence generated by electricity, not limited by intelligence capability. The formal OEC definition is a machine-based system that can, for a given set of human-defined objectives, make predictions, recommendations, or decisions influencing real or virtual environments, and they are designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy. The AI revolution has been around for a while, incrementally inserting itself into our lives. The hypothetical super intelligent machines like the avatar up here, they're still a long way off. But a common form of AI we use daily is the predictive machine learning models in Netflix or Facebook or on the likes of voice assistants that are on our phones or built into our speakers at home. For me, it's Siri on my iPhone. As part of my work, I'm focusing on unbiased design and technology. So I wanted to do a bit of a test. So I used Siri, my voice assistant, on the phone. A disclaimer here, whilst I use Siri as a test subject, this scenario is equally applicable to any voice assistant on the market. So here's the test. Hey Siri, call annoying brother. And Siri says, okay, you have two annoying brothers. Which one do you want to call? This seemingly simple but effective instruction has called an AI technology, an algorithm using natural language processing and machine learning that explores personal context awareness. These algorithms are analysing me to help understand my human characteristics, my likes, my dislikes, and interests. The voice assistant isn't doing my thinking for me, but it is learning about my preferences, like which brother is annoying, or the time of day that I set my alarm. It does this so that it can augment my human memory with artificial intelligence. So the next part of this scenario is to play this through from a Māori worldview. Of course, the first thing I want to do is activate the voice assistant on my iPhone with my own Māori language. So I use a Māori greeting. Kia ora, Siri. And the response? Silence. Okay, so common Māori greetings aren't Siri's thing, and I think we already knew that, but I want to analyse this response From a Maori view, just for a moment. In 1982, a Maori language movement began because our language was endangered. Between 1913 to 1982, we went from a 90% Maori-speaking population to less than 5%. A staggering drop by 85% of Maori language speakers in 70 years. And it has taken decades of promoting Maori language recognition so that today in Aotearoa, New Zealand, we can walk into a room, we can use a simple, common Maori greeting, like kia ora, and almost everyone in that room will understand it, and many will reply with a simple Maori greeting in return. Why is this important? Because through the application of an AI technology, silence takes us back to 1982. And by no means am I saying this was the intended consequence of the AI designers, but just imagine if the system had been co-designed with Māori around the table, of how the knowledge of that impact could or would influence the design outcome. So this is why we need Indigenous people to breathe life into AI. But where's the opportunity? The role of any technology is to solve problems. With AI, it is with the use of data and algorithms and AI models that we create multitudes of possibilities, which can lead to the improvement of both economic and social outcomes for Indigenous people. But for it to be successful, it needs our perspective in a way that's designed, delivered, and operated. And the value that we bring as Indigenous people is our intrinsic connection to nature, identified through the story of Hineahuone, our creation of humanity directly from Papa Tuanuku, our Earth Mother. And with that whakapapa, that DNA connection, we have unique knowledge and principles which stem from the world's largest research and design centre, Mother Nature. Science and innovation is in our bones, literally. And the great thing is we're already seeing this Indigenous knowledge applied to many fields, from arts to healthcare, environmental and sustainability practices, and it continues to be relevant in our contemporary world. And more recently, we are seeing it in our application in technology as we co-design with AI experts. We have organisations in Aotearoa, New Zealand, like Te Hiku Media and their co-design partner, Dragonfly Science, along with other local tribes and community, and they're developing a multilingual language platform that will create cutting-edge natural language processing tools, starting with Te Reo Māori. This is going to create access to language archives for language sustainability. The tools will enable applications to be built that will ensure that we can use Te Reo Māori when engaging with digital devices. In relation to sustainability and conservation, we're also seeing Māori agencies co-designing with environmental AI experts. And they're using geospatial data, machine learning techniques, and deep learning algorithms to map important ecosystems, such as wetlands and coastal environments, for protection. This is also allowing us to optimize land management decisions and providing commercial outcomes. And then we're seeing opportunities in the field of education, where Māori creators like Tiaki are embarking on creating community-centred learning, using AI algorithms to define learning programs more akin to our Māori way of learning. These are good examples of where Māori are using AI technology to ensure a greater focus on cultural and social equity. And as we continue to mature our AI ecosystem in Aotearoa, New Zealand, it will be important that Māori are partners in embedding our value systems in the AI technology design. This is how we as Indigenous people are giving life to AI. Stephen Hawkins made the statement, whilst AI is a machine-based system, the development of it resides in people's hands. So back to my earlier example. It wasn't Siri who made that decision not to respond back to me in Māori. In my job, I'm focusing on how we as people design unbiased technologies, because we are frequently seeing AI exacerbate existing human biases as machine learning programs are trained on data sets decided by the human programmers. My definition of an unbiased technology from an Indigenous perspective is this: systems designed on the principles of equality and fairness so that they do not exclude, disempower, or discriminate against Indigenous people. To achieve this is no small feat, but it is what we need to do to uplift our Indigenous inclusion. Let me share with you the 5 principles that I think are a must that we need to consider when designing technology to ensure we're designing Indigenous AI. The first principle is Indigenous language inclusion. In order to create equality and ensure cultural integrity, Indigenous language needs to be the default in our technology solutions. Our language, and we've heard it over the last 3 days, our language is the heart and soul of our Indigenous people. It preserves our culture and stories and histories. It is a must when it comes to designing solutions. The second principle is around design inclusion. Whether we're designing a process for applying for a bank loan, or the application of facial or voice recognition software, or geospatial patterns of our waterways and lands, it is essential that the Indigenous user of the AI technology are consulted as part of that design process. Our needs are different from others, from the way we spell our names, to land ownership structures, to the pronunciation of words, to our view on data ownership and storage. Therefore, in order to cater for these differences, we need to be at the table to give our view as a technology user. And this forms a segue into my third principle, which is literally having Indigenous people at the table. Inclusive technology takes inclusion at the differing levels of governance in the organisations, from the leadership level right down to the techies doing the doing, designing the solutions. That is the only way that we can bring our intrinsic values and ideas into the systems that we design. The fourth principle is the importance that the Indigenous values are applied to the entire technology ecosystem, from the way we choose to procure the AI or technology software, right through to the way we choose to or select to dispose of our technology assets. We get the best impact when we live our values internally as an organisations and have the same expectations of those who we do business with, which is why we need to consider the entire technology ecosystem. And finally, it's just around keeping honest to all the principles I've outlined. We all create a better sense of awareness when we establish measures and keep ourselves honest to them. It is only then that these design principles become part of the DNA, part of their hineahu or their story. It all sounds easy, but this shift does provide some challenges, particularly as we face into the impacts of entire ecosystems built on technology. But as the digital and AI industry continues its rapid growth, it is important that our governments and industry take action in this space. Our AI Forum New Zealand is encouraging these principles as we act as a partner on the digital and national AI strategy. We have amazing Māori business and technology leaders developing services with our Māori culture at the heart of their work. But I believe that the biggest disruption for our Māori people exists when we can get mainstream corporates to adopt these principles, where every service and software delivery in Aotearoa, New Zealand, whether it's a bank service for a loan, whether it's an online virtual assistant or avatar, or a facial recognition platform, is applied with a Māori worldview in mind. Whilst artificial intelligence carries no life force or no living force, the potential for it to impact humanity, and more specifically our Indigenous communities, is significant. Even if AI is not here to replace humanity, but to augment our human capability, Indigenous AI is where the future is. Kānohi ki te kānohi, face to face, hongi ki te hongi, nose to nose, ha ki te ha, and breath to breath. Te tangata, the person, me te atamai ia hiko, and the artificial intelligence. Tihei mauri ora.